I didn't tell a soul. I tried to forget about it, but a month later, I was riddled with nausea for a few days and slowly realized I might be pregnant from that fateful night. I took a pregnancy test the next morning, and the 3 minutes I sat on the edge of my bathtub waiting for the results were some of the longest minutes of my life. If it was positive, my nearly perfect, all-American, well-planned life would be over. What would my parents think? My traditional friends and professors? My bosses? Would anyone ever marry me? As I turned the stick over, I saw the 2 lines which meant my fear had come true. I was in a state of shock and panic. Yet, in that same moment, I recognized the intrinsic dignity of this newly created human being that God entrusted to me. Knowing how I would disappoint my parents, it took me 11 days of daily calls to finally tell them. And despite my trepidation, they responded with love, support, and a great sense of humor, which is important, as did my friends, professors, and employers. They helped me choose life. My mother was born in 1945, and she herself was placed for adoption. My mom later learned that her birth mother had tried to abort her 3 times and failed. Thank God abortion was illegal then, as it should be now, or I would not be standing before you. My mom met her birth mother, whom we love, when she was in her 30s, and they formed a loving relationship. And my grandmother was also grateful she hadn't succeeded at aborting her. My grandma's brave decision to choose adoption, to choose life, gave me a comfort level with adoption. Through many miraculous events, as I searched for an adoptive family, I was led to the Sullivans, who lived in Maryland. They came to my hometown of Spokane, Washington, to meet my family, go Zags, and we all immediately clicked, as though we had known each other forever. This was the beginning of many miracles, little providential graces that accompanied my decision to choose life. One example of this was the selection of my baby's name. Although Barry and Liz were in Maryland and I was in Spokane, we independently were inspired to name my baby Nathan, which means a gift from God. The Bible verse from Wisdom that claims, "From your womb I have called you by name," is true. God names each of us before we are born. I also knew that I was meant to be the vessel that brought him into this world, and they were meant to be his parents. God had a plan. He created life, and we needed to seek his plan and do it. Another example of the miracle of choosing life was the moment of Nathan's birth. My biggest worry as the oldest people-pleasing daughter had been changing my mind about adoption at the birth because of my parents' visible sorrow. But when Nathan was born, my parents and I were completely at peace, a peace which could only have been from the Holy Spirit. I kept Nathan for 6 days at my adoption counselor's recommendation, and it was a beautiful experience. The Sullivans arrived and met him on day 3. We baptized him and had a handing over ceremony on day 4, where Barry and Liz welcomed all who were present into their family. One final example of God's miracles which flowed from choosing life was how God guided me after his adoption. I went back to college less than 2 months after his birth, and I visited the Sullivan family when Nathan was 10 months old. Seeing him with a family I could not yet provide, I knew then with 100% certainty that I had made the right decision for him. 2 weeks after I returned from that trip, and now completely at peace with my decision, I met the man of my dreams, who is now my husband of almost 25 years. He fell in love with me the instant he heard my story. He chose life. Barry once said that the reason our story has turned out so beautifully is that our trust in God and what has always been best for Nathan was at the core of our relationship. Nathan has an incredible resume, including Eagle Scout and National Merit Scholar. He inspired our boys to join the Boy Scouts so they could be just like their older brother, and now he is a successful businessman. While his CV is impressive, what is most important is the love he has for all who meet him and his willingness to help anyone at the drop of a hat. His faith is most important in his life, and he is a selfless, strong, great Catholic man and role model for our children. And he too fights for choosing life. His is definitely a life worth living, as is every life. Many people, even pro-life people, say that exceptions should be made in the case of rape. As a mother, this offends me so much. Why is his life worth any less than mine? Why should he be punished to death for the crime of another? He is an incredible human being who has blessed so many. Some say that I shouldn't have been forced to go through a pregnancy that was through no fault of my own. I say, choose life, because giving birth to him is what healed me. Giving birth to Nathan did not destroy my life, as the abortion side would like you to think is the only outcome, but gave reason to a painful experience. He is the beauty that came out of a very dark place. To kill him would have meant not only enduring the pain of rape, but the guilt and trauma of knowing my child died at my own hands. I chose to love this life that God created. I was empowered and strengthened by my experience, without which I would not be who I am today, nor would I have the incredible husband and thus children that I have been blessed with. If any of my children looked me in the eyes and asked if I would endure rape in order for them to exist, of course I would. It wouldn't be easy. It wasn't easy, but I would endure anything to give them life. That's what motherhood is. That's what love is. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Motherhood is not sacrificing the life of your child so that you can live the way you want, but sacrificing yourself so that your child can have the best life possible. When I look back over my life, I see the handwriting of God all over it. And it is so much more beautiful than I ever could have written on my own. The moment I looked at that positive pregnancy test and my life as I knew it flashed before me and I trembled with fear, I had no idea that 29 years later, I would be standing here today before you to share my awesome testimony of how powerful God has been in my life and that the grace that has surrounded us all. I had no idea that this baby would inspire and motivate my future children, that they would attend the same university in the town where he lives, where he watches over them and protects them as their relationship grows in love and respect and true brotherly friendship. How could I have known that my husband would choose me as his wife, not in spite of my story, but because of it? I had no idea that all our lives would turn out so beautifully. If you find yourself in a crisis pregnancy, know that you are stronger than you think. Will be more supported and loved than you expect, and you will be okay. If you don't feel supported, there are churches and agencies waiting to help you. You will end up stronger, and you will survive, and so will your baby, and this will empower you. Choose life, choose love. I chose life, and now I want you to meet the fruit of that choice. My son, who is truly a gift from God, Nathan.
Good afternoon, San Francisco. Thank you all for being here. San Francisco is very important to me. It's where my story began, and I'm truly honored and blessed to be able to speak to you all today. Often when you hear the pro-life, pro-abortion debate, what is disheartening is that even some of those who identify as pro-life will make a little exception. You've heard it before, I'm sure everyone here has. I am pro-life except in cases of rape. I want everyone to realize, especially the acceptors, that you're talking about me and everyone like me. Life is life, no exceptions. Life is a gift, no exceptions. Life is precious, no exceptions. How I was conceived doesn't define who I am. What has formed me is the courageous choice of my birth mother and my adoptive parents. They chose adoption. She chose life. And every blessing I've had flows from this choice. There's a misconception that children placed for adoption are unwanted, but this simply isn't true. There are far more parents looking to adopt than there are babies placed for adoption in this country. Adoption is an option, but it is more than just an option. Adoption is a blessing. We are called to build a pro-life generation by living pro-life lives and to witness to those around us so that they can see it and live it as well. We must not leave a legacy of endings, but rather a legacy of beginnings and of hope. In the face of darkness and difficult circumstances, adoption chooses life. I'm living proof of this, and I'm certainly glad that my mother made that choice. Thank you all for being here today. God bless.
How about that?